What was the very first extraterrestrial that you saw on these bases?
That's the tall whites.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what would you call tall whites? Like, just give us a description of what they look like, and any other specific physical identifying details to start with.
They're over 7 feet tall. They have a small face, a little bit smaller than ours. They're very slender in the arms, very ectomorphic, as we would say. They have a very fluid movement that's actually like a dance. So it's kind of like this when they move. They're articulating their joints and their limbs are flexible. They also have a very deep understanding of all of, our belief systems, and they're very compassionate.
So if I gather correctly, then the face would be predominantly like ours?
I hate to bring up movies, but in the Star Wars movies, there was a group of tall white beings that were making clones of one of the soldiers there. And they were in charge of this planet, and they had this really slender, beautiful oval face with these really beautiful eyes that took most of the face up. So the eyes were at least 2 times to 3 times larger than our own eyes. And their nose was almost non-existent, very small. I mean, their skin is just ash white. It is so white that they actually, light comes off of them and reflects off of them. It's a really beautiful type of skin, kind of like a sheen to it. They do wear clothes and uniforms like we do, usually skin-tight types of clothing. They have a very intricate internal organ system that is capable of living on almost any planet or any atmosphere. And they have a very small chest, in a V shape.
So it definitely doesn't look like a gray.
No.
The version of tall whites that Pete was talking about, which may not be the same, he said that they really have trouble getting too close to humans like us, that it's almost a psychic mess for them. Did you observe them in some degree wanting to keep distance from regular Earth humans?
Not these tall whites, but yes, there have been other hybrid whites that are oversensitized by our fields of energy. We carry a lot of bacteria, good bacteria and bad bacteria, and viruses on us, and they all give off this special pulse of energy, and it's overwhelming for them.
Was it easy to tell the difference between men and women?
Yes, there was a feminine, more slender facial features, and the eyes were a little bit not as large.
Okay.
And the eyebrows also, not eyebrows, but you can see there's a tinge of an eyebrow, but not hair. It was just like the pigment was different above the eyes. The bodies looked pretty much identical. And I've never seen them walk around. They always had some sort of clothing on or something.
And what did that clothing look like?
The same. It was always some sort of skin-tight apparel, like a spandex of some sort.
What was their form of communication? Did they speak with their mouths? Or
They're very telepathic. They can speak perfect English and other languages, all the languages actually. But you don't have to, because they'll just look at you, and they say when you have the look, please look back, because it's this eye thing that they do. When you see their eyes and your eyes, it's like a link of some sort, where it's like however it works, it's downloaded everything that they're thinking to you. And they're very receptive to you as well. Like they know everything about you once you meet them.
So if you were to have an unloving or judgmental thought about the way they look, because I'm sure this happens sometimes,
It definitely happens. They don't react to that because they know that sometimes it takes a little bit of time for people to get used to them because they're different.
Where were you? What was it like that first moment you looked into its eyes?
We were getting dressed with our suits to go into an operating room. When I remember looking at them, not even saying anything, and it was like a greeting. It was like as we're getting ready to go in, and we looked at each other, and the word greeting came to me. It wasn't a voice. It was just the word like greetings. And I remember in my mind looking at them and saying the same thing in my mind, and they cracked a smile.
When you saw a movie like Men in Black, what was your feeling about that, where you have Will Smith and their agents working in these underground facilities with all these extraterrestrials around? What was your feeling when you saw that film?
I'm really not a big fan of that. I don't like when Hollywood makes fun of extraterrestrials as some sort of game or some sort of, horrible threat. The one that you and I saw recently called, was it Valerian or?
Yeah, Valerian.
Yeah, and these ETs look exactly like these tall whites.
Wow.
And I remember wasn't there a part in there where the United Nations of ETs were coming together and there was all different kinds?
That's right at the beginning.
Yeah, that was very accurate depiction of the many different kinds of extraterrestrials that are out there that have to bring their own environment. Like one was like a fish or something, had an aquarium on his head.
That's right.
And of course, that's kind of funny, but it actually is true that, like, we talk about ETs wearing things that are from either their planet to keep the energy correct, and also they might have to have a special helmet just for their head to sustain their life. So that was a really good, I was impressed with the screenwriters and the writers and the animators that did that.
Now, Corey Goode encountered an avian type of humanoid that apparently nobody in the space program had seen before. And this is the blue avian. We talked about this. I know you've seen the image.
I've seen this image.
So did you ever see any type of avian humanoids yourself, such as these blue avians or other types that were similar?
Yeah, similar to that, but not specifically like that. They were very human-like, and they had very small feathers and large skin pores. But they, for the most part, looked more human than they did a bird. But they did have, these attributes of certain things. Like they didn't have a nose. They did have like a small beak there, but the beak actually had teeth in it. And they didn't have the kind of head you would see. It wasn't like an exact bird head. And the eyes were flat across just like ours, but they could see perfectly straight this way instead of like a bird probably is more on the outside. But had very small wing feather, like little skin flaps under their arms and lots of, feathers on the back, but not so much on the face and the chest at all.
I want to run something by you that I've heard from some other insiders. Certain ET groups apparently were worried about a reptilian sentient life on Earth becoming really dominant and aggressive to other species, and the 65 million year old cataclysm that hit the Earth apparently was intended to wipe them out. And it was at that time that the moon, which apparently is a used car, and I talked about this with William Tompkins, was then parked around the Earth to create a seasonal climate that would allow mammalian life rather than reptilian life to become dominant.
I've heard of a event that was intentional to destroy the Earth because reptilians were not allowed on it anymore. But I don't know how accurate that is, because it was written not as a document. And there has been archaeological finds in the Vatican from this time that depicts, reptilian beings destroying aquifarians and other beings of that time.
I'm curious about whether you ever saw something that would look like the Yeti or the Bigfoot while you were working in these facilities, because some people have reported things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I even have personal experience with the Bigfoot and the skunk apes and my teen years, around 16 years of age. There was a large white Chewbacca type being, 8 or 9 feet tall. And I was camping out in Florida, down there south near the Everglades. And it was probably around 150 yards away. It was far, but it was an open field. It was at dawn. And I just saw this being walking next to the fence line. And it was like 5 feet higher than the fence posts, which are 4 feet tall. And the stride of this thing was like over 6 feet. And I literally stopped in my tracks and watched this thing walk all the way across. And when I go back and check the dates, Now that there's these things online, you can look for spottings of these extraterrestrials. I've noticed that in the area I was, this being has been seen many, many times by many people. These beings are been here a very long time. They work with the inner Earth beings. They're here to collect and gather data and DNA from all the living species and plants and water and animals in the water and fish and everything. And they're cataloging this and putting it on a type of vault somewhere in order to preserve, what Earth really is, kind of a museum for Earth somewhere. And that's why you can never get these guys on film too much, because they have the ability to teletransport themselves at will.
Why do you think we have such a hard time accepting these eyewitness testimonies of Bigfoot?
Well, these are very large animals. I don't consider them too much human, I'll say. But they have a consciousness and they have a job to do. And they are probably the lowest maintenance extraterrestrial that I know. And what that means is they can be dropped on a planet with nothing and gather these items and catalog them and store them somewhere. And then, like the movie Predator, where they come down and hunt people and then take all their skulls back. So imagine this guy just coming down and snatching up a bunch of lavender and daisies.
So they're not doing anything violent?
No.
Okay.
No, they're not allowed to. They're actually prohibited from, hurting any type of living creature.
So what you're describing here sounds like a fairly intelligent being. Do they have communication skills? Could they speak, or do they have a telepathic?
Yeah, they're the other ones that use their vocal cords to voice, and also they can do, like elephants have this ability to send these large thumps through the ground. And these things can be heard for miles and miles and miles and miles away by another elephant. So they have that ability. And that's why people hear really weird shrieks. They hear really weird sounds, thumping sounds. People usually say it's someone banging on a tree or something, and not so much that. And they can communicate that way too if they, let's say, have a sore belly and they can't use their diaphragm to make these noises.
Do you think that there might be some that are not necessarily on this mission and are less intelligent and more primal and dangerous?
They have, if they get sick or something happens to them, they cannot use their teletransportation abilities, and they get lost or left behind on many planets, and they have to stay there, indefinitely. And these are some of the lost ones that are hiding but they're very adaptable. And they like to work alone. They're very solitude-type extraterrestrials.
Do you know anything about their origins?
No, I don't know anything about their origins, but they have an indistinctive way to trace portals on the Earth, like natural portals on the Earth, not man-made portals, that they know where to go. And they might travel vast, distances to do that, but they will never go through a city. Or, they're not allowed to interact with beings from any planet.
Give me an example of a specific extraterrestrial species that you had autopsied before that you were called back in for more consultations on later.
One of the extraterrestrials that we were actually working on looked like a smaller human being, kind of troll-like, but it also had plant DNA in it. So think of a 24-inch to 36-inch tall troll-like being that has, instead of hair, it has real plant life growing on it.
Wow.
Yes, and it also uses the energy from UV light to keep it healthy, and it actually absorbs moisture through its skin, and it's very mossy-like. They're so extremely mossy, like it on the Addams Family, that you cannot see its face unless you actually started pushing away the plant life that's growing on this creature.
Would this plant life cause it to feel physical pain if it was removed, or was it more like body hair?
No, it's more like body hair. Neurologically, the plant life has binded and mutated with real cellular material that was a human, an ET. If you could dry a gray piece of clay in the sun, and how it just kind of crumbles and cracks away, That's exactly what it looks like. But they do have nose, they have a mouth, they have ears, and they have eyes. And the insides are red and pink like our mouth, and they have a tongue, and they breathe. It's just, they get a lot of their energy from their skin.
Do they have this plant life growing off of their face, or is the face area, if you pull it back?
Just the face area is, like I said, it's this crumbly, crackly, bark-like, hardcore, very tough-looking face, very rigid.
So you're saying that this is not a natural species, but this was an engineered life form?
Correct. They can go weeks without eating, as long as they have sunlight and water. They can make their own nutrients through this plant interaction with cells. And very fascinating science, by the way, of how that all is intertwined. But they did it.
Did you ever get to see or interact with a live moss being, as we could call it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. How did it communicate?
It communicated with its hands.
Really?
Yeah,
Sign language.
A type of sign language, yes.
And what was the feeling that you got from it?
I hate to say not negative, but it is a creepy, spooky type of being, and it's very quiet. It reminds me of kind of like a chameleon, and they're not very hyperactive beings. They were taught at a very young age how to communicate because they lack vocal cords.
So their face doesn't move very much? You said it's very hardened?
Yeah, it's very hardened. It barely moves, but they can chew,
Do their eyes look like ours, or is there something different about
They're black.
their eyes? They're black?
Black eyes.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
There's no pupil. You cannot see their pupil. They're pitch black, which does frighten some people. They can pretty much mask any type of field grass, any type of trees around the world.
So had you first encountered these beings while you were still working full-time in the underground base?
Yes, I did. And I think because of these beings coming from an inner earth place, they were somehow able to, grow things. One of the most amazing things is these things cannot procreate.
Oh.
They do not have organs like we do, but they do make seeds. And these seeds have DNA in them. One of my colleagues was talking about they're doing a new experiment on another type of one of these moss beings. And I just remember looking through this giant 3-foot circular window, and there was like a seed in there as big as you, a lot of them.
Wow.
And I was just taken back. And that was it. I mean, I wasn't even allowed to know anymore. I wasn't even allowed to speak.
I didn't realize, actually, that you were, in some cases, working on these autopsies with people who were not of Earth origin. So could you start to lay out for us under what circumstances you might have someone in the OR with you who is a completely separate type of person than what we're used to here on Earth?
First, I would like to start off by saying not all extraterrestrials are 100% of not human genetic DNA. For the most part, most extraterrestrials actually have our same human DNA. It's just that over millions of years, they have been, intertwining and getting new types of genetic formations by mixing different DNAs and different types of extraterrestrials.
So is the theory that there are actual travels going on and interbreeding in ancient past?
Exactly. Could be possibly part of the extraterrestrials that we are seeing today because they have already mastered time travel and portal travel and things like this. So the time is, you can't really say the time because time really doesn't exist. But these extraterrestrials did have a descendants that were from Earth.
If we saw this Arcturian, what would it look like?
Well, there's many different types of Arcturians, just like there's many different types of humans on planet Earth. But
Okay.
some of the Arcturians that I worked with do look very human-like, but they're a lot more robust and they're larger. Some are 7 to 8 feet tall. And some of those actually look like a rock formation, like that one of those superheroes that's made out of the rock you see on TV and
Like in
pop
the Fantastic
culture,
Four.
like the Fantastic Four. They look like they're hard and rock, but they're not. They actually have a spongy type feel to them. They are usually a gold or an orange type color, and they are very robust with a large, Cro-Magnon type skull, which is a little bit about twice the size of our heads. And they have been spotted on the projects many times in many different ways. And then there are terns that are actually more human-looking, which just have a very robust, muscular-looking bodybuilder type look to them, but a lot more Cro-Magnon as far as the skull features, and the bones are about 3 times as dense as a human's. So these projects could have up to 3 teams of 15 scientists and physicians and technicians working on just one being and one craft.
Really?
And some of those scientists and physicians are actually of unearthed origin, this is the term they use, which are extraterrestrials.
Would you say that these extraterrestrials are benevolent?
Yes, I would say they're benevolent. I would say they're a very humanitarian type of thought process. They're a lot smarter than us. They could actually at any time probably do damage to us or hurt us with their telekinesis and telepathic abilities, but they don't. And, I might be actually assisting an extraterrestrial, helping complete the mission, whatever the mission is, gathering frequencies, using devices, or gathering tissue samples.
What kind of being might you actually see as a coworker in the operating room with you?
The beings that are monkey-like, human.
Okay.
And their pelvises are not spread out like a monkey, by the way. They all stand very erect like we do, but they have the formation of, a monkey's look with longer hair, and the face is more pronounced like a human without a snout. And not that much fur on the face, by the way, just around it and around the body. And they speak very well. They have great vocal cords. They have a problem, though, with high-pitched sounds. So they have to wear special things in their ear when we work with them that actually tones down the sound of just our own voice. And, of course, they pick up on different frequencies from electromagnetic fields and TVs and computers. There's these high-pitched sounds they give off that really distorts them and allows them to become actually ill if they don't have these protective ear plugs in.
Do we know where these ape-like people originated from? Did you get any briefings on their system or anything like that?
I believe these come from multiple systems, including Arcturus and Sirius and Spica. The genetic lineage of DNA that I was reading in the library at the time did pinpoint a lot of these ape-like human beings from these systems, that they all had similar genetics from each system. So you might have one that's mixed with, other ET systems, but all the DNA was the same.
So what is their agenda here?
Yeah, there's obviously something going on behind the scenes that I'm not privy to know, but what I believe is that these beings that were either caught or captured or volunteered to come here are strictly humanitarian, and they don't have any agenda at all. Being next to one of these extraterrestrials, by the way, including the ant people and the mantis people, you have a really beautiful self-feeling being in their energy fields. And people have actually had miraculous healings by being on these craft and working on the craft and working just in the vicinity of an extraterrestrial. It actually brings our vibration up, so our cells are running at a specific voltage so our own cells can heal ourselves.
You said it was enjoyable to be around them. I think most people, without a lot of vetting and preparation, would be extremely frightened if they saw an adult human-sized insect that appeared to be intelligent standing in front of them.
And you have to understand that these ETs do not see just like we do in just our normal color spectrum, which means they can see things we can't see, even X-ray vision for some of them. Some of them have special coatings on their eyes, like some of the reptilian forms have 3 different layers that they can put on their eyes to see in different light spectrums at will. Some of the ant people also have this amazing ability to see through things and to hear things that we can't hear, and to actually look into you and can tell if there's something wrong with you, if you had a disease or whatnot. They also look a lot different than we do as far as the body. The ant people have these very, very thin but very strong arms and legs. And then you have the robust body that could be segmented or non-segmented, depending on where they're from. And then you have the face. And a lot of people do comment on the face. They could have a double mouth or pinchers on the face and a lot of tentacles and a lot of little things coming out of their face that kind of might look a little gruesome. You might hear one speak. They have special voice box analyzers that come on their neck and in their ears. They talk multiple languages through these things. And it does sound not like our voices. It's a little more higher pitch, actually. And you can see all the layers inside, which is just a normal thing. It's nothing. They're not trying to be negative, but we perceive it to be negative because it's not a smile, that's for sure.
Right. Well, how do you feel when you're around one of these insectoids, let's say?
They have great communication. The insectoids are very loving, caring energies. They actually tease you sometimes with their intelligence. And a lot of communication and a lot of species out there with extraterrestrials, all based on just that, without vocalness. It's all on just looking at each other and, gathering information.
So you feel this sense of humor and this personality coming from the being without any facial cues at all that you would normally recognize.
Right, because a lot of these insectoids have just a very hard, skin, very reflective skin, that there is all these muscles moving up and down. They don't have a muscular structure. So it's a very different feeling. It's a different aspects of communication.
Did you ever get any information about where they come from, or how did they get to Earth?
I don't know where they're exactly from. I didn't read up on that as much. But they seem to have been around a lot longer than the human race.
One specific example where let's describe what the being that you were autopsying was, what was the mantis being there for, why was that project being done?
One of the autopsies we did, we had a mantis being with about 5 other scientists in there, and they were a lot larger than us, probably another foot or 2 taller. I think 7.5 feet, to say the least, like the size of an NBA player. Okay. And it was a very white albino-looking skinned, blue-eyed person that I don't know why we were operating on him, but they did bring the mantis in because the mantis was able to somehow reactivate the brain through electric stimulation from them, even through a suit, and can memory recall what happened to the person before they died.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. How much like a mantis's face would this face of this being look like? Or are there
it is dead on. On the mantis, it is dead on that triangular shape with the bulging eyes, and it's all the same color. Their face and eyes are exactly the same color, so it's a little weird. They're usually a pale green, and they can change color. Really? And you kind of can get mesmerized, actually, by it.
Wow.
I always love when they do that. I get so captivated.
You also mentioned reptilians.
Yes.
What were the reptilians that you saw, and what were they here for?
Well, the reptilians that were working on the projects I was involved with were very intelligent. They didn't have much of a personality. They're very direct, and they're very strong for their size. You may see one anywhere from 6 to 10 feet tall. They don't have any snout. They have a regular, like, human face, scaly, but very large eyes, twice the size of our eyes, with pupils like us, not the slits you see in the movies. It's under my understanding that these might be hybrid human reptilians. I did read a lot on their space center in the Boots region of the Arcturus star system area, where they have a type of planet there that was man-made, like you would see in the movies like Death Star.
Do you think these benevolent ETs want to be known to the rest of us at some point? Do you think there is going to be some kind of opening up of the veils of secrecy?
1,000% they want this. And I think by them doing these humanitarian projects to show their willingness to help and work with us, to learn their customs and to learn about their physiology, is the first step for human extraterrestrial interaction and trust.
What could be an example of something where you knew that it was an extraterrestrial? Were there any cases where it was certain that it was not a genetically modified being?
Yes. I mean, after a few years in the projects and your clearance gets up and you're getting briefed on different scenarios and different types of extraterrestrials where they're saying they're extraterrestrials, and also getting access to the most amazing libraries, you get to really understand that we're just a small part of such a wide and vast array of other beings that are spread out through the universe and multiverse.
So if we could take off in a ship and start going to other star systems, how common would it be to find planets with inhabited, intelligent life on them?
If you jumped into the ocean, how many different species would you find amongst just jumping into one ocean? So it's that vast, and there's that many beings. There's an unimaginable amount of beings of different races.
So you could then say that pretty much any star system we would go to, unless there was really horrible conditions or something, is going to have beings that have set up shop there and have civilizations.
Exactly. This is what people don't understand, because beings don't need a planet to survive on. They have already mastered to make their own planets and their own space stations to live on. And there's some beings that never touch a planet because their own craft or, ships that are, hundreds of miles in diameter can actually reproduce living conditions such as a planet, such as an ocean, such as an island, such as growing food.
When we were talking about your extraterrestrial coworkers before, you had mentioned this probably more benevolent reptilian race. You'd mentioned they were in a constellation called Boots. Could we discuss a little more about that? Like, if we went to their star system, what would we see?
The one I was talking about has a type of Death Star look to it. It's man-made, and they have craft on these space stations that look like meteorites, and they can be up to 30 miles long, some of these. Wow. And they can be also as small as a compact 24-foot U-Haul truck.
I find it very interesting when we look at Indian history in the Mahabharata and the Vedas, that we have what appears to be an evil reptilian race called Rakshasas, but that there also was a benevolent reptilian race called Nagas that they actually ended up making temples out of. And
right.
You actually see lots and lots of stone inscriptions of what looks like humans, but then they have like a reptilian tail, like a snake.
Yes.
So do you think that these benevolent reptilian ETs that you were talking about could have been there at the time of the Indian civilization where those texts were written?
Yeah, I 100% believe that. I know all the texts you're talking about. I know the statues that you're talking about. I know the amulets they made of them and some of the carvings down there. So that I agree that these reptilians that I'm associated with that I know are this a little bit more docile, hybrid type, human type figures, and they were looked up as gods.
Now, it's also interesting because Pete Peterson did say that there was a benevolent reptilian race as well, and he had told me that they were very keenly interested in our religious development, our spiritual development, that they were very wise, very advanced, and they really seemed to want us to become ethical and to learn how to all get along with each other.
Yeah, I can concur with that. They do have a religious background that I don't know everything about, but they're very strong about it. And they do carry amulets and jewelry that show their belief in this system. And these things celebrate this religion that you speak of, which is the unity of all and one that they believe in.
I'm just curious if you ever heard about this benevolent reptilian race talking about the Draco and the very antagonistic other types of reptilians that apparently just about everybody was opposing.
I've never heard them speak about that. I've never seen any data to support that from their lineage. They do have their own belief of where they came from as far as, the very first reptilians, which I do believe probably could have come from the more, Draco style, evil type, reptilians that people talk about.
Well, this is a very interesting point because Pete Peterson did say that there was a reptilian diaspora. A diaspora is when essentially one group that is a spiritually inclined group breaks off from another group because they believe that group has become evil. These benevolent reptilians that he spoke about had a diaspora from a negative reptilian group in the past. And perhaps the fact that they might have been hybridized with humans means that maybe they would have more compassion for us.
Right.
Could you give me an example of one race that we haven't spoken about yet that you could share with us now?
Yeah, I can go over a couple of races. I think maybe I should talk about the more liquid state planets. You have beings that have to live in water or come from a water planet, that come from the Pleiades system. And we call them aquifarians, some of the first of these extraterrestrials that live in water. That's where they feel comfortable.
Well, this is very interesting because there is a correlation with a book by Robert Temple called The Sirius Mystery, in which he studied this particular African tribe that comes from Mali, and they have this aquifarian race, I'll use your term, and their legends clearly describe these as aquatic humanoid beings.
I mean, I have to comment, a lot of our operating rooms and centers, in the bases are definitely, completely filled with salt water or fresh water.
Really?
Just for this type of thing. Well, there's many types of water type extraterrestrials. There's some that look like manatees. There's some that look like dolphins. And there's even some that do have a shape from the waist down that's kind of scaly. But from, the chest up, they actually look pretty human. And I think this is maybe where the mermaids come from. I think this mythological, background of the history of these sailors seeing these beings. And there's a lot of cities that, people are discovering, but the Cabal does not let people know this, that are underground. And it wasn't because they were flooded. It's because that's where they really were, these cities, under the ocean. I'm sorry, under the ocean. And that also proves the fact that these extraterrestrials lived here and they flourished here at some point in time. And I know you know a lot about the history of the mermaids and some of the extraterrestrials over in Asia.
Sure.
That have, I think they're called, what's the name?
Kappa in
right,
Japan.
Exactly.
I found out firsthand that they had considered it an absolute fact that you could not have your kids walk near bodies of water.
Oh, right.
And they still, to this day, have warning signs near the water warning about the kappa, which is, the legends say, it's a reptilian aquatic being, okay? And it comes out of the water and grabs kids and drags them into the water. So these beings could speak their native Japanese language. They would make jokes. They were often very inappropriate and rude. They would make rude noises, rude gestures. What do you think these kappa could be actual extraterrestrials that got here somehow?
I do believe there's some sort of correlation with a lot of the stories over there of this, these descendants from, the aquifarians, I think, are multiple as far as genetics and DNA.
So in your projects, then, the term aquifarian would be an umbrella term that could refer to many different types?
Exactly. Yes. It's a multi-race under the phenotype of a water being.
Now, you had said that some of these beings actually have a head that's like a dolphin?
The face does not have a snout like a bottlenose dolphin or anything like that, but they have a very large mouth. And it does come out just a little bit of a snout, but not like you would see in our modern day dolphins and porpoises. But the mouth goes all the way to the sides of the thing. Yeah.
A little disturbing to see, perhaps.
And they're kind of funny looking, actually. No offense, guys. But they do look a kind of comical looking, like you'd see on a cartoon character. And they only communicate through telepathic waves and through frequency.
Now, with the dolphin, the eyes are kind of way on the sides of the head.
Yes.
So how do the eyes place on these faces?
Yeah, so imagine a very round, bulbous head like a light bulb. And those eyes are on the side of the head. But they do have great vision is still more forward than you see in our society of dolphins and whales, where they're completely like a hammerhead way out here. Okay. So they are forward-looking eyes.
Do they have any ears?
Just the slits, the holes, yeah. But no ear lobes or anything like that. They have very small fins on their back, maybe only 3 to 4 inches of these little fins that go down their back. And there is something there like that cuttlefish fin that goes all the way down to their feet.
Now, as far as the arms go, obviously a typical dolphin just has flippers, but yet when we actually look at the skeleton inside the flipper, it actually looks like a hand.
They have the same bones we do. And instead of you guys seeing like a skeleton of a whale where you guys see just that, they are hands. I mean, you can see this. But these are full arms, skeletal arms and legs.
So if the legs are stubby, what are the arms like? Do they have more length on their arms?
Yes, they have more length than the legs. Absolutely.
But again, it kind of sounds to me as if there's this humanizing intelligence that takes different types of life and will make it so that it has opposable thumbs and hands and
yes, yeah. There's a conscious. I believe there's a conscious energy in the universe that, over time, it affects other planets around the whole universe and maybe multiverse, where it's the same 5-star program.
Yeah,
I think it's some sort of program.
right.
They can resonate an actual sound from them that humans cannot hear, but they can feel it.
At least once you were called in to a different location
Yes.
because of this craft being organic, they thought. So you walked into some sort of room?
The door opened, and there I was in this giant, what I would call a sterile hangar.
Wow.
A sterile hangar is what I'll call it. And there was this craft there, and there was many people there. A lot of people running around.
So what do you see? What does this thing look like when you walk into the room?
It's hard to explain, but if you ever ate ice cream,
Okay.
like if you had an ice cream scooper, you make those round scoops. And if you ever made Jell-O in one of those containers where it goes like this, and then like this, and then like this.
Oh,
Okay?
yeah.
Do you understand? I don't know what shape to call
A
that.
Jell-O tree.
It was like a Jell-O tree. It was. And it was like this. And it was the most beautiful, I don't like the color red, but it was the most beautiful color red I've ever seen. Yeah.
Glossy?
Yes. Yeah. Very reflective. But
Any seams or just
no
smooth?
seams at all, completely smooth. Yeah, and it did not give off any light, but it was kind of transparent and looked kind of looked like Jell-O.
You could sort of see through it?
Yeah, it was kind of transparent a little bit. Yep.
No discernible features on its surface? No writing? No
Nothing.
windows?
Nope.
Huh.
That was it. And
Did they know how the beings got in or out of it if
yes,
it crashed?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I had to go inside.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was wild.
Okay.
Anyway, so these two guys are with me. We're walking up to the craft, and I'm allowed to share. I mean, they know, of course, everything I'm doing. They're assisting me, which is cool. And so I go to this point on the craft and basically cut a piece of the craft away with a special device. And it was just like the tissue from the being. It was very the same consistency of that. They took me around to the other side, and I took another piece and went underneath and went in the middle of this thing because it's suspended.
Did it move or wiggle at all? You say it was like Jell-O. I'm just wondering how far we can take that.
No,
analogy.
it was solid,
Okay.
but the consistency and the transparency of the first inch of this craft was like transparent, like plexiglass. You could kind of like see into it.
So you go underneath it, and what do you see? How do you get inside?
I was also instructed to take this sphere near the center of the craft, which was kind of hollow.
Was this some sort of beam cutter, or was it more of like a scalpel, or?
I'd rather not say the exact device, and that'll probably come out to the public soon.
Okay.
So I took a small sample of that, a very small sample. That's what they asked for. Small sample of like a punch biopsy, we would call. And so handed off to the guys. They wrapped it all up, put in a special box for me. And next thing you know, I'm back being escorted right out. The whole thing took less than 2 hours.
So let's talk about this. This craft is so bizarre. It's so unlike what any of us would have expected you to say.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the beam.
I know it
now.
sounds crazy.
No, it's cool. It's
Yeah.
cool. Let's talk about the being.
Yes.
What was the being like?
The being was very similar. It had a red consistency, and it was very. Remember, I told you about that jelly-like creature, like we talked about the transparent one before, which we'll get into later. But this one was solid, and it was just perfect human shape. Okay, it had a face though that comes to a point instead. It does have this cup-like. It's not perfectly round. It has this like a teardrop type.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And if you get the teardrop, and then you just squish it a little bit, it was just like that.
What was the size of the facial features compared to the size of the head? Like if you could map it out with.
It was
with
very
your
similar
face.
to humans.
Oh.
Like as far as how far the eyes were, 'cause that's one thing we measure. We measure across the eyes. We do a symmetrical test, like plastic surgeons do. So we want to see symmetry. We always measure all that, and we also have a scanner that goes over the whole body to 3D, like replicate it and models. So every creature they have is already 3D modeled, replicated.
Wow. So when you say the eyes were white, are they round? Are they almond shaped? Are they like human eyes? What would the eyes look like?
No, they were more round than the typical almond shape, but they were the same size. And this creature was probably 5'5", about 5'5", about 5'5" tall.
Was it just all white, or did it have something like an iris or pupil? Like we
No,
have?
there was a different color white in the middle, but it was still all white. But there was a circle in the middle that was like whiter than the rest of the eye, so you could see that. And I was not, my part of that being was not to have anything to do with the face or the eye.
Did these beings have a skeleton?
Yes.
And how similar to us would the skeletal structure be, from what you could tell?
Just from where I was working at in the pelvis, it was very similar. I didn't see anything different. I did not see the X-ray of that, or the CAT scan or MRI, or what we call we have a special scanner that scans the whole body, and you can kind of really see everything all at once before you go in. But I didn't get to see it on this being. I only got to see the scan for the reproductive area. These creatures would probably have fingers maybe 30% longer than our fingers. Yeah, they were very long and very thin. And their skin was just like this, but it was red.
Oh, so it was actually more like a human in the way the texture of the skin.
Yes. Yes.
And what kind of red would you say it was? Like, if you had to describe the red a little more in detail.
Like a brick red, rose red. If you mix that together, it was a nice red. It was like a matte brick red.
Okay.
but not as dark as brick red. A little bit lighter.
Did it have any body hair?
No.
Okay.
None.
What would be the proportions of the skull to the body compared to one of us?
The skull was a little larger than a normal human skull, and the torso was smaller than our torso. But the legs were longer, and the arms were a lot longer than our arms, to say the least.
Wow.
Yeah, as far as symmetry.
So do you think that if somebody who didn't know anything were to have one of these walk up to them with these white eyes and red skin, do you think they would be terrified?
Well,
or did it have sort
I
of
don't
a
believe
noble
so.
look to it?
Of course, the fear that's installed and programmed us, yes, maybe, but you have to understand they don't, when you approach usually extraterrestrials, you're going to know right away on first, seeing something, you could possibly maybe have a fear factor involved. But then again, if this was walking down the streets of New York, I think most of the people would be more enticed about it and not go throw rocks and hatchets at it. Here you have this being, with its, arms open, with no weapons, not hurting anyone, not saying anything, let's say, and emanating a very good peaceful energy. People are going to respond in the right way. I believe in the people. I believe people will do the right thing.
What was the most physiologically abnormal or different thing about this being that you saw either on the MRI or in the autopsy?
It was the uterus, yes.
What was different about it?
It had 4 chambers.
And did they have any speculation as to what that might be for? Did it have multiple?
It can have multiple children all at the same time.
Is that something that might be common, or is that kind of unusual?
That's very unusual. It means that species can multiply very quickly.
Here's what I don't understand. The uterus has all these chambers, but it would appear, based on conventional human gestation, that the baby has to grow to a large enough size to really kind of fill the womb. How could a being have so many chambers and still have the offspring able to actually be born and be healthy?
We believe that this being only has babies once in their lifetime, and it's possible after that they die shortly after.
Really?
Yes.
Do we know anything about what these beings are called or where they're from?
Yes.
But you can't say, or
No.
can you? How do you get an organic craft that looks like the body? So this is a very strange thing we're talking about here.
Yeah, so the craft are made in space. They're made by harmonics and frequency and sound. And what that means is you have a good conscious connection with this craft. Lots of craft can be made from your own DNA and have a piece of your DNA in it, and that allows you to consciously assist with the consciousness, speak to the craft telepathically and also move the craft without doing anything. The cells on those craft are living cells, and those cells have micro, nano particles of computer technology in them. They're like micro capacitors inside these cells that self-regulate. So the whole body and every cell in that craft is actually, speaking to itself.
And how prevalent do you think this is amongst extraterrestrial civilizations that are advanced enough to travel here?
I think it's a common thing. They learned how to, produce gravity, a gravitational field, an electromagnetic field that envelops the craft and the person, so they have their own atmosphere and their own, gravity. And that's why they can, go 1,000,000 miles an hour and turn in a 90-degree turn, because they're in their own gravitational force. The craft is you. So you are the craft. You can actually feel this back and forth. It's not operating really on its own as much as you think. It is its own sentient, but it only feels, your emotion. It's a very beautiful connection between the beings and their craft.
Well, it makes sense you'd want to design it that way, so it was safe.
Right. I'm going to program it not to bite me anymore.
Right. All right. Well, Emery, I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for watching. This is Cosmic Disclosure. I'm your host, David Wilcock, here with our special guest, Emery Smith. Thanks for watching.